please.
Goss,
Yes.
Harper, King, Marsh,
Present.
McGuire, Mitchell, Patterson, Petrie,
Present.
Rector, Rosales,
Here.
Storr, Summers, Tinsley, Tracy, Anderson.
Point of order, Tracy's not on the board yet.
Oh, sorry. Anderson, Clemens, Clifford, Coert, Cruz, Esri,
Here.
Furtado, Weibel.
President, we have a quorum. Tonight's prayer. Tonight's prayer is a prayer for good weather. From the patron saint of Saint Medard. Good Saint Medard, humble and loyal servant, you trusted God's providence in all things and at all times. You knew that God provides for the needs of his children. Inspire us with your faith so that we may weather the storms that surround us and trust that the sun will shine again. Amen. Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Would the clerk please read notice of the meeting?
Notice is hereby given that a regular meeting of the County Board, Champaign County, Illinois, will convene on June 21st, 2018, 6:30 p.m. in the Wild Shields Meeting Room, Brookins Administrative Center, 1776 East Washington Street, Urbana, Illinois, in said county for the purpose of allowing and ordering payments of claims against the county, receiving and acting upon reports of committees and such other matters as may be brought before said meeting, which said meeting shall continue in session from day to day until the completion of said business.
Thank you. Next, I seek a motion to suspend the rule that all appointments must go through, or all motions must go through a committee, because the next item did not go through committee, as well as a number of items under new business. Moved by Mr. Ezra, second by Ms.
No,
Cora.
I wanted to say something.
Ms.
before
Cora, you can't say right now. You have time to
I
speak.
had my hand up before you sat down.
We're in the middle of a motion. He made a motion, okay? Second by Mr. McGuire. Discussion on the motion to suspend the rules. Seeing none, all in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion carries. Next up is item 6, Mr. Summers. As Vice Chair of the caucus, would you please place that motion in front of us?
Sure.
Oh, I'm sorry. Seek approve the agenda and the addenda. Moved by Ms. Petrie, second by Mr. Ezra. Discussion. See none. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Sorry about that. Okay, now item 6, Mr. Summers.
Move adoption of resolution number 2018-138, appointing Tracy Douglas as a county board member in District 6 to replace Josh Hartke for an unexpired term ending 11/30/2018.
Is there a second? Second by Mr. Patterson. Okay, discussion. Ms. Cowart, is this what you want to talk about at this time? Microphone, please.
I was gonna ask, because I see you got public participation now toward the middle of the agenda, and I was gonna ask you if you could move public participation up before we take this vote.
Well, we just approved the agenda. That should have been done when we approved the agenda.
I had my hand up before you sat down in your seat.
All right.
Move to suspend the rules?
I'm fine.
Okay.
Let's go back to that. Let's go back to the agenda. Ms. Court wants to move the public participation to in front of the item 6.
Second?
Second by Mr. Rosales. Discussion on that? Okay, all those in favor? All those opposed? All right, the motion carries. So let's go to public participation. First up is Mr. Joshua Tim. Should remind you, you have 5 minutes, each person.
Good evening. Hello, my name is Joshua Tim. I live in Ogden at 102 East Lincoln. I've been a resident of Champaign County for over a decade, and I'm currently serving as precinct committee person in Ogden. I would like to speak about the tax delinquent land auctions that the county has infamously brokered, specifically the one located in the backyard of 1201 Eastern Drive in Urbana. Kim Harden owns that property. She has lived there for more than 12 years, and she has called Champaign County her home for most of her life. Over the time that Ms. Harden has lived there, she has joyously participated in the Candlestick Lane holiday festivities, meticulously cared for her beautiful lawn, and completed numerous home improvement projects, several single-handedly by herself. Of those projects, a few are in jeopardy. These include her welcoming deck, her crystal clear pool, and beautifully decorated fence. They are in jeopardy because the county has erroneously sold a piece of land in her backyard that is less than 4 feet wide to a company, not a person, a company that has no viable future plans for it. Some argue that the separate piece of land doesn't even exist, given that that two of the county's plat maps don't agree with each other. One shows the thin strip of land does exist, the other doesn't show it's there at all. Others say that the county did not do what is ethically required, as in notify residents whose land touches that property of the potential sale of that tax delinquent land. This reminds me of a trust and faith building exercise we did in grade school, where one person faces away with their arms folded over their chest, and another person stands right behind them. The first one purposely falls backwards, and the other catches them. Do you remember that? I feel like the county was the one standing behind Kim. When she leaned back, the county let her fall to the floor. Shouldn't we have faith in our own local government? By turning a blind eye to this issue, you are telling us that we should not trust you. Ms. Harden has paid her property taxes every year on time. She has taken care of and taken pride in that property for over 12 years. And now she has to fight this company that has a bumbling idiot in charge over what she has cared for, what she has taken pride in. I believe the county should get its act together and stand behind its citizens, giving landowners next to the tax delinquent properties first right of refusal when those properties should come up for sale, and sign documents saying that these landowners do not want to buy. After all, Ms. Harden did not receive a single piece of paper from the county regarding this questionable sale of property. I'm not fully versed in tax delinquent land, but this seems like a good place to start. Thank you for your careful thoughts and attention.
Next is Kim Harden.
Hi, everybody. I guess Josh gave me a pretty good introduction. I am Kim Harden. I've lived in Champaign County most of my life. I grew up in Tolono, lived in Pasodum. I did move to Effingham for a short time, but I moved to Urbana back in 1995. When I began to shop for my first home, it was love at first sight with the house on Eastern Drive. I was really excited to learn it was part of the long-standing holiday tradition of Candlestick Lane, so in April of 2006, I bought it. I did all the right things in the purchase process. I worked with a realtor, an inspector, an attorney, and they were supposed to make sure all my ducks were in a row. Within the first year, the toilet stopped working, which led to getting the side yard dug up, the fenced and deck torn down to gain access to the pipes. After that was resolved, my backyard neighbor, who was a contractor, said he was planning to put up a fence on his property and he could connect my new side fences to replace my old one to his. His fence spanned the width of my backyard, so we agreed that we would share that fence between us. He also offered to build me a nice family-sized deck where I've hosted many gatherings and celebrations throughout the years. Jump ahead to December of 2017, I received a letter from Brian Nastras telling me he owns property that's inside my fence and would like to discuss a resolution. I didn't believe it was true and began investigating. I learned that the Ponds and Timberline Valley subdivision in Champaign had also been bought by Nastras. So I spoke with some people who live there, and they pointed me to the Champaign County Treasurer's Office and Dan Welch, who had been very helpful to them. I met with Dan, and he said the property had been owned since 2001 by the county, and it had been up for auction every year, but there had never been takers. I asked why no one contacted me to see if I wanted to buy it. I learned then that when properties are put up for sale, the Treasurer's Office sends out postcards to notify adjacent property owners. By the way, neither I or my neighbor on the other side ever received notification of this potential sale. According to their records and the cards that they sent to my address were continually returned to their office. I further learned that the previous owners were still listed as the taxpayers and the cards were being addressed to them. I asked how that could have happened when I've been paying the tax for 11 years. They had no explanation and said they were really sorry this was happening, but there was nothing they could do. I got that answer from a lot of people. They did promise that they would work on changing the notification process in the future. After verifying that this wasn't a mistake or a bad joke, I called Nastras to ask what he wanted. He told me he'd take $3,000 for the 3-foot strip of land. I told him I didn't have that kind of money and would need some time to figure some things out. When I eventually returned to him with an offer of $1,000, he raised his asking price to $3,200. At that point, I knew I needed help. I then attended the Cunningham Township Board meeting in January. They couldn't help but wished me luck. I then attended the January meeting of this board. I thought nothing was going to come of that either, but on May 14th, the press release went out referencing me speaking at that meeting, and as a result, the parcel slice detector application was created. While I'm thrilled to be part of helping other Champaign County property owners avoid this, how about some help with my mess? Nastras repeatedly threatens to tear down my fence and remove my junk. The most recent threat came after the property tax bills just went out in May. He told me again of his plan to show up and destroy my property when I least expect it. I told him I was tired of the whole mess, and I made a lowball offer to take it off his hands so we can both get on with our lives. He was insulted, and he told me that I'm trespassing and he'll never sell me the property at any price. People tell me to ignore him because he's a bully who will never follow through, but no one knows that for sure, and having this hanging over my head's interfering with my health and well-being. Every time I hear from him, I lose time worrying he's going to show up and wreak havoc on my life. I lose sleep to every noise out on the street. I even installed a security camera to keep an eye on my property when I'm away. I've always loved being at home, and it used to be my safe haven, but it's not anymore. But back to the reason I'm here. I need help. I'm no longer asking, what can you do to help me, because everyone tells me, sorry. I'm telling you, this board sold the property without due diligence, and this board needs to help me make things right. I'm fortunate to have several Champaign County residents here backing me up tonight in telling you that you need to step up, take responsibility, and help this longtime Champaign County resident. You've got to get this parcel back from Nastras as soon as possible before he makes good on his threats. Thanks for your time and attention. I'm sorry, I know I've gone slightly over. I'll leave this with you. It has my contact information on it so you can easily reach me when you come up with a solution. And if I don't hear from you, I guess I'll see you at the next board meeting. Thank you. Who should I give this to?
Next up is Charles Young.
Charles Young, District 6. This is all about race and gender. This is all about race and gender. To the chair of the Champaign County Board and his sneaky Democratic colleagues and friend who talk and whisper sweet mess in his ear, your political process of voting with the new female candidate that you always wanted is illegal, unconstitutional, a scam, a hoax, and a dishonor to the entire Democratic Party and to our local government, especially to all taxpayers and voters in the Champaign County. You, county chair, and your good old boys / friends and y'all racist practices, it is really a shame how you criticize and dehumanize the first African-American female Democratic chairperson in its history with her rights, her practices, and with her authority. However, her position is highly honored by the state of Illinois and our Champaign County government, simply because of race, culture, gender, and her decision-making authority most recently in filling District 6 seat. you and your county board good old boys team promise your male friend who previously held the vacant seat that it will be filled by another friend of you all's by any means necessary, even if it required sophisticated political racist practices to accomplish it. To the chair and your good old boys groupies, this process of promising to hold a vacant seat for a friend of the same race and of the same culture is a clear sign to all that yes, Black lives truly matter, justice truly matter, and true political democracy does matter. To the county chair and your young and older Caucasian friends, since the Democratic Party chair so happened to be female and Black, previously within the past 2 years, we went through the same exact process before 4 times, voting and selecting internally among the Democratic Party to fill 4 vacant seats. And all 4 times before these seats were approved for the 4 white candidates. And catch this, not one time did you, as the chair of the Champaign County Board, question the Black female Democratic Party chair decisions with these 4 white nominees. But in this case, because the chair of this board and this good old boy network has a history of promoting whiteness, look it up in your history books, discovered that the person who was now nominated was African American and male. Then all H broke loose, especially through the media, by criticizing the Black Democratic chair simply because the black male nominee, candidate, and winner so happened to look like her. I really thought true democracy and true politics supposed to really care about all human beings equally, and especially all position of authority who has the right to make decisions as a chairperson and not be micromanaged by another chair with equal power like you did her. And last, to the chair of this board and your good old boys team, I am glad, Chair, that this is your last elected term, because true democracy and true politics does not deserve this or someone like you again. And to the chair personal friends, without saying names, but you know who you are, it is sneaky people like you who keep politics so divisive and segregated, repeating bad history again and giving it a bad name and a bad reputation. You do not deserve to be voted back into your political office ever again. So we, as citizens and taxpayers of the Champaign County, need to speak out now through public meetings like these and through many social media outlets that's out there. Our local government deserves better than this. This is the true definition of politics. Go look it up, and not politics. And let me say this real quickly. The few Blacks that is on this board, you need to create a Black caucus internally, because trust me, they have theirs whether you know it or not, and I think you do know it. Thank you very much.
Alicia Young.
I am Alicia Young. However, I am reading this letter on behalf of Patricia Avery, former County Board Chair and District 6 Board Member. This is regarding Dr. Charles Young, County Board District 6 appointment. Dear Champaign County Board members, I am writing this evening as a constituent of District 6 to offer my support of the appointment of Mr. Charles Young to replace Josh Hartkey as my County Board representative from District 6. As a former chairwoman and board member from District 6, I know very well how important your work is to the citizens of Champaign County. You are entrusted with the responsibility of being good stewards of our tax dollars by overseeing county budgets, ensuring public safety, taking care of our county roads and bridges, and approving the appointments of many qualified individuals to various boards and commissions, just to name a few. I commend you all for your willingness to serve the public and your constituents. This is even more admirable in this day and time where politics can often get in the way of doing what is right for the people. What I expect from my board representative is someone who will serve with honor and integrity and who will always put the concerns of the people first, regardless of politics. A person who cares about serving their constituents even if it means reaching across the aisle to get things done. Mr. Young has demonstrated he has all these qualities and more. Mr. Young is a family man and a man of God. He currently serves the people by working in his church and community. I would be more than honored to have him serve as my representative. I trust his judgment, and I believe he will be a good steward for the people in District 6 and in the county. When I think about my time on the board and having made numerous important policy decisions, working with a man of character like Mr. Young will not only offer a fresh and diverse perspective, but with his educational background, his decisions will be well thought out and thought-provoking. It is my hope that regardless of your political affiliation, you will cast your vote for Mr. Young. Thank you for your time and for your consideration of this very important appointment. Sincerely, Patricia Avery.
Reverend Nash.
Reverend Charles Nash, Champaign, Illinois.
Move a little closer to the microphone.
That better? All right. To the chair and the members of this Champaign County Board, I'm here tonight to speak and ask you, as you carry out the assignments that you have been appointed to carry out, that you do it honestly, that you take a serious look at this community and make sure that the decision that you make is the decision that the members of this community, the citizen and the taxpayers of this community has appointed and assigned you to do. When we look at the board, do we see the community? Do we see every member of this community represented when we look at the board? Put politics aside and deal with real issues. A real friend will tell you when you're wrong, not go along with the decision that you made just because you want it made. What is the community saying about this board today? Are they pleased with the decision that has been made? What about your neighbor? Are they pleased with the decision that you made? No, they're not pleased, but they're not speaking out. But you as a chair, you as a member of this board, you represent Champaign County. Are we pleased with the decision? Are we pleased with what's in the media, what we're hearing on the news, what we're reading in the paper? It's the decision that you made that's causing the media to report things that should not be. But it was your decision. Was it the right decision? Did you take serious thought about it? We're here tonight not to take sides. It's not about Democrat or Republican. It's not about my friend and your friend. It's about what's right. And that ought to be the way you make decisions, based on what's right. And I don't think that's what has happened. And members of the community is not pleased with the decision that has been made. Can we trust you now to serve this community? Ask yourself that question. Can the community trust you based on what you've done? And ask each other, should I support what was done? And if you do support that, can we trust you when there's a serious issue that is brought before us, can the community depend on you to make the right decision that will benefit the community? Not benefit you, but the community. I ask you to think about that. Who do you represent? The community or your friend? Do what's right. And when you go to bed at night, can you sleep? Can you rest on the decision that you have made? When you see your neighbor and they just finished reading the newspaper and hearing the news, when they look at you, what are they thinking? Even though they may not say nothing to you, but they know you did not make the right decision. They look at past practice and they know you didn't. And so I ask you tonight, as you get ready to make another decision, make that decision based on what's right, not based on what someone wants you to do. If it's right, I support it. If it's wrong, it does not matter who you are, Republican or Democrat, white or black, male or female. It's about what's right. And that ought to be what governs you to make your decision. Is it the right thing to do? Thank you.
Jennifer Bishop.
Good evening. My name is Jennifer Bishop. I am a resident of Champaign County. The letter that I'm reading is on behalf of the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People, better known as the NAACP, of Champaign County. This letter is being read on behalf of them, a nonpartisan civil rights organization. The Executive Committee and the General Body find the Champaign County Board having some illegal, discriminatory injustices and inconsistencies of practices within their system of political process that needs to be addressed, corrected, and resolved immediately. This is a short letter. Thank you for your assistance in this matter, and it is from the NAACP Champaign County Local Branch and the Political Action Committee. Again, my name is Jennifer Bishop.
Reverend Evelyn Underwood, please.
What was on the paper?
You're next.
I asked you what was on the paper, sir.
Do you want to speak in public participation?
What was on the paper, sir?
I got this that says you want to speak.
But what did it say? What is my name?
Evelyn B. Underwood, Reverend Dr. Evelyn B. Underwood.
Thank you, sir.
I apologize for that.
Thank you.
For what it's worth, I have a PhD and I never use it, so excuse me for dropping it, 'cause I drop mine all the time.
PhD, JD, and 2 others. So I want the young people who's listening here know that I'm standing not only for my church, I'm standing for them because they don't believe they have a voice. So until they feel empowered, it's up to us who have been educated, who are involved with all types of people, to try to speak for them. And I trust this is being televised. I hope it is. Now, let me start. To the county board chair and vice chair, all the officers, and the members of the county board. First of all, I think I put number 1 on there, procedure. From what I read, I thought, and I could have read it wrong, but what I thought with your resolution that public participation is to come first. Now, maybe without a vote, you have the authority as chair to not put it first. But from what I read, it's supposed to come first, but this time it didn't. But I guess you rectified that through motion. That's my first thing. Why this time, when hopefully it was a lot more people were gonna come and talk, but apparently they're gonna have time and some of the people will talk. The second thing I have to say is relating to number 6, with the resolution. I want to say I have the newspaper clippings. I have the information. And Dr. Charles Young has said most of it, so you've heard it. So I will make it short. I have the information here and the newspaper clippings, and I think the Reverend Doctor is mentioning the people are talking, because Ray Charles can see through this, and he's blind. Now, we see that the county board chair has his authority, and the Democratic chair has her authority. Now, how is he gonna step over, disrespect her, and go have a meeting of her committee person, precinct committee person? That's out of line. In checking with some people, they said he should be checked or censored. It should never be. He had a right, yes. From what I understand, he had a right to appoint whomever he wished. That's his right. But it's not his right to go through the procedures that he went through. He was out of line. There was some more out of line, out of order, and several others. And it's up to this board to not let this happen. And another level would be the state's attorney or the attorney general. This is not right. Your own procedures, this is what has been changed. He has a right to appoint whomever he wishes, recommend to him, but not to step out of line and disrespect the Democratic Party chair. And the Democrats shouldn't let it happen, and the Republican, because if he does it to them, he's gonna do it to you. My granddaughter said, she had in Facebook, right is right, and right don't wrong nobody. And those are my comments. Thank you very much.
Is there further public participation? Seeing none, we'll close that. Okay, let's go on to item 6. Mr. Summers, please.
Move adoption of resolution number 2018-138, appointing Tracy Douglas as a county board member in District 6 to replace Josh Hartkey for an unexpired term ending 11/30/2018.
Is there a second? Second by Mr. Patterson. Discussion. Let's go with Mr. Rosales.
I had some comments because I'm a man of few words. I seldom speak on this board because I've been on this board for 10 years, and I've seen tribal, both Democratic and Republican maneuvering and manipulation of the processes, and I don't like that. So I have to speak up, and I will be remiss if I don't say something towards this specific injustice. I called and tried to bring this issue into a committee where it could be discussed as the process will be moving forward. I was denied that opportunity to discuss it with both my Republican colleague, county administrator, and board chair. I thought that it could have probably been resolved if it would have been into a discussion prior to this process. And, you know, Tracy, I feel for you. I really do. And, you know, a legal counsel, Tracy, I'm lost at the last name here, Douglas, and Dr. Young as well. You guys are victims of the manipulation that the tribal group in the Democratic Party consist and persist on manipulating the process, manipulating the elections, you know, manipulating the county board members that sit on this county board. You know, I hate to mention people that have passed, but you know, Lloyd lived for this county board. He represented this community for many years. And this tribal group worked against him to post somebody in his seat and knock him down off of his seat, and a week later, he died. Okay, I have seen this tribal group work against Chris Storr, that they also appointed or nominated somebody to run against him because they didn't like his vote. And then he lost his seat. I have seen them approach Lorraine Cowart, and they have said, move out of the way, or we're gonna run you over. I have seen them do that to Patsy Petrie. I have seen them threaten me. This has to stop. We have to work together to move forward. They looked at me as, why did you vote for the selling of the nursing home? Well, build programs, not jail, was the group that shot down the first referendum to provide money for the nursing home and provide money for capital programs. So in my judgment, I would have to decline this appointment because I think the process that has been followed when Scott Bennett was appointed, which I talked with Miriam about it, and she says this is the same process, that Stephanie Furtado next to me followed, that Chris Storr followed, that James Tinsley followed. It's the same process. Why did it change? I would like to read something to you because they said, well, we're only going to accept those elected within District 6. This is from the Illinois statute, 10 ILCS 5-79I, that says, whenever a vacancy exists in the office of the precinct committeeman because no one was elected to that office or because the precinct committeeman ceases to reside in the precinct for any other reason, the chair of the Champaign County Committee, Mariam, back there, will do the appropriate political appointment. May fill the vacancy in such office by appointment of a qualified resident, not in District 6, resident in Champaign County. She could do that. So she used a both appointed and elected. But the process said, no, we're going to change this. We're only going to use elected, even though we use appointed and elected in past selection processes. And the appointment precinct committeeman shall serve as though elected, all civil rights given to that individual. However, no such appointment may be made between the general primary election and the 30th day after the general primary. When I read this, I said, we have to call this in. This appointment did not go through committee. This appointment did not follow the political powers of the political party, and this appointment was basically rammed on the agenda without any further discussion. So I will have to deny that. Tracy, I apologize that you have to come into this mess. Dr. Young, I have to apologize that you're a product of this mess as well. We're all victims. Unnecessarily, this could have been avoided if we would have followed procedure. And then as I spoke with some of our senior-most officers, they indicated to me that this will be Pius's last term, and this will be the demolition of the fusion between county chair and county administrator. So the new administrator, elected official, will make those appointments in the future. So we even failed for the opportunity to fix it because there is no fix now moving forward. Thank you.
Mr. Storr.
Thank you. Mr. Rosales spoke pretty eloquently about all of the various issues that I'd care to speak to this topic. I will only say that I know that quite a number of people have worked very hard to try to resolve the issue before it came to the board and were unsuccessful. And I greatly appreciate the time and trouble that they took to meet. However, as Mr. Rosales pointed out, this procedure has been used in the past. It has precedent. It is statutory and it is legal. Unfortunately, another procedure was tried and or was used, and that diverges from what we've done in the past. And I don't think that that making up a new set of rules, regardless of how well thought out they might seem to be, is the right thing to do. We stay with what we've done until, and change the procedure according to the ways and bylaws and so forth, procedures that we have. That makes us something of laws, and that is why I think that makes us strong. And I regret to say that I'm going to have to vote against this. I'm sorry about the embarrassment, and that concludes my remarks.
Further discussion? Mr. Tinsley.
I would just like to go on record by saying, it's on. I'd like to go on record by saying, or by asking, please do not use my time on this county board as being part of a systematic agenda. And I've been here for a little bit over a year now. And let's just clear the air out. I've been targeted since I've been here. Nobody made those phone calls for me. I was not appointed. I didn't win by 60-some% based off someone else's recommendations. I wouldn't put that work in. And still have not been credited for that. No credit for Mr. Young. NAACP ain't never called me. When the system was targeting me, all 4 times, when nobody calling me. I dealt with that with my family and by myself. I'm happy he got all this support with him today. Miss Underwood was my 7th grade counselor in middle school. She ain't called me. My mama know. My mom, I spoke with my mama. I know who was in my corner and who wouldn't. But just don't. Mr. Carter was in my corner before he passed. God rest his soul. And we all got caught up in this mess. But one thing I ain't never lost focus on is what I'm supposed to be here to be doing. So please, don't give my winnings to somebody else. That's all I got to say. And I will not be voting to support this resolution.
Further discussion? Mr. King.
I was just going to ask Pius if you could, I'm assuming you could, speak to maybe the differences in the process or what sort of led to this point in terms of the appointment process, if you could speak to.
Sure. I heard a lot of complaints from Democrats about, first of all, previous selections that have been referred to. I heard some grumbling, but really not much other than that. Then people were generally okay as results. I think I heard one of the people who lost was not happy, but that makes sense. But with this one, I heard a lot of people complaining. They were particularly not happy with the fact that one of the precinct committeemen had some territory within District 6, but all of their voters are outside of District 6. That person had absolutely 0 votes in District 6. The piece of property they have happens to be the big warehouse south of the Kraft plant. For some reason, that's surrounded by District 6, but that little piece there is in another district. I attempted to contact the chair, the Central Committee chair, and I'll read the email to you. Dated May 14th, Mariam. I plan to have on the agenda for the upcoming County Board regular meeting on May 24th, 2018, an agenda item that allows the filling of the County Board position that was recently vacated by Mr. Josh Hartke. I have heard from a number of Democrats that a meeting of the elected 6th Precinct Committee person has not yet been scheduled. I would hope that you plan to convene such a meeting in a timely fashion so that I will be able to fill the position at the above-mentioned meeting. I received a phone call later that day. She accused me of micromanaging the affairs of Central Committee Chair. Later on May 18th, I got an email where she said, I have lost patience with your repeated attempts to dictate to me how to perform my duties as chair, based on that one email. As I stated in our telephone conversation, you have not interfered with any previous county chair in this manner. I'm very concerned because your target has targeted me, the first African American, to hold this position. Certainly she wasn't happy. Here's a comment from another person. I personally appreciate the way you're handling this. I especially like the way you're not including the drama. Appreciate your position on this. It is well thought out. May 22nd. June 6th. Thank you for all your hard work and the effort you do for our county and our party on this item. Again, June 6th. My views that Pius's conduct in this matter as county board chair has been exemplary. I wish that all of our Democratic elected officials could be reliably expected to show the integrity that Pius has shown in this matter. So that's, and what I didn't like was really the fact that there were weighted votes coming from outside district, and also the fact that the meeting was called with a 2-day notice. The Central Committee rules state there has to be a 5-day notice. Those are the rules for the regular meetings. By Robert's rules, those are the rules for all meetings, unless otherwise specified. That meeting was called with a 2-day notice, which was improper. Now, my meeting was not a meeting of the part of the Central Committee. It was a meeting with people who haven't been on the Central Committee. But I explained that clearly. I can meet with anybody. This is my process for how I got opinions from people who are elected by the voters. Mr. Young is one of those precinct people. He did not attend the meeting. He got notice of it. He did not attend. If he would have been nominated by at that meeting, I would have nominated him tonight. I've never met I met Miss Douglas at that meeting that I held on that Sunday a couple weeks ago. I'm not sure. I may have met Mr. Young once before. I'm not sure. I know we've had been at the same meeting at the same time. I know. I'm not sure if I met him face to face. Further discussion. You're out of order. I'm sorry. You're out of order. We will go now for a vote. Could I have a vote, please? All in favor? Right? Oh, Ms. Furtado.
I wanted to speak just because my name was mentioned, and I find it's difficult to talk to friends. I don't know either of the candidates. I understand the sentiment that there's sort of some machinations behind the scenes. I didn't know either of the candidates. But I will say this, I was deeply, and I'm not part of the Central Committee. I'm not part of the Central Committee, so I wasn't part of that process. But I was deeply concerned with the way the initial vote was handled. I really believe that the people that vote for something, for a person, should represent the area that they're voting for. That to me seems real basic. I just want to say that this idea that this is how it's always been done is inaccurate. It's not how it's always been done. I'm going to be honest, I 100% am not entirely clear how mine was done. But I know that there was nobody weighing in that didn't represent anybody in my area. So I want that to be clear. For me, it's not a matter of either candidate. I'm sure both would be great. But there has to be some sort of fairness in process, and I was concerned about that. I regret very much that this couldn't have been handled earlier. I want to reject the idea that it's inappropriate for there to be contested elections. That's a really dangerous idea. I wish more people would run for offices and that we had debate and vigorous debate about issues. That should be happening more. Just because somebody won a primary one time or was appointed one time doesn't mean that that's their seat for life. And I just really reject that idea. I mean, I'll even go so far to say I wish someone was running against me so that like we could have more conversation. But I want to say to both candidates that this was really unfortunate. This has nothing to do with either of you. And I'm really sorry that you got caught up in this.
Ms. Petrie.
Well, I'd like to take this opportunity since there are a number of Democrats in the room and the chair of the Democratic Party to point out that this is a process and a procedural problem. In 2008, Jerry Kirshner and I drafted corrections in the bylaws for the party. And those corrections that we worked on, had they been adopted in the bylaws, we would not be in this situation today. Unfortunately, that was not the case. The bylaws are dated 2011. They have not been changed or amended or anything. So this is a very unpleasant circumstance which could have been prevented had there been some attention made to the bylaws along the way. I'm not expressing my concern that what Jerry Kirshner and I worked on were not adopted, other than we addressed all of these issues in what we drafted. And it didn't come to be, and that is very sad because we are having this conversation, which is uncomfortable for every single individual in this room, no matter what your role is. And I hope that the chair of the Democratic Party and the Democrats in the room take this as a major lesson and reactivate the bylaws committee that does exist in the party, that has been fallow for a couple of years, and go to the table and work on the bylaws so that this does not happen again. It's an embarrassment for the party.
Further discussion. Mr. Storr?
I would correct Ms. Petrie in this regard that the bylaws committee is actually meeting. It hasn't met since February, but the Democrats do have an active bylaws committee. Unfortunately, this is not one of the topics that they've undertaken, which I assume will be remedied in the near future.
Okay. Further discussion? Okay, Mr. Kane.
It's just a question. I guess I haven't been a part. If an appointment doesn't happen, could you speak to, I guess, what happens after?
They have to appoint somebody else.
Okay.
Roll call, please.
Anybody else want a roll call? Okay, Mr. Kane, we will have a roll call. Ms. Petrie, one thing?
Yes, just a clarification question to you. I listened to the podcast of when you were on WDWS on Monday, and you mentioned that there had been a change in the law that allowed you to have, for want of another term, carte blanche to do what you did. Do you know the date when that change happened?
It occurred when I was not chair. That's all I know.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, roll call.
Goss,
Yes.
King,
Yes.
Marsh,
Yes.
McGuire. Yes. Mitchell. Yes. Patterson,
Yes.
Petrie,
Yes.
Rector. Rosales.
No?
Store. Summers. Tinsley,
No.
Anderson. Clifford. Cowart. Cruz. Esri,
Yes.
Furtado. Weibel.
Yes, that motion passes. Congratulations, Tracy. Okay, next we have the administrator, the oath of, the county clerk will administrate the oath of office. We'll have him pose. No, let the news guy, let me get in place here. Actually, could somebody hold the microphone? Jim, Mr. McGuire, would you hold the microphone?
I'll do it.
Okay.
Here, I can do it. Okay, I'm going to read you the oath at the end of it, either swear or affirm. Do you, Tracy Douglas, having been appointed to the office of County Board Member for District 6 in the state of Illinois and the county of Champaign aforesaid, do solemnly swear or affirm that you will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the state of Illinois, and that you will faithfully discharge the duties of the office of County Board Member for District 6 to the best of your ability?
I swear.
Very good. Congratulations.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Holton. Meetings next month. County facilities, canceled. ELUC, maybe. It could occur in July. We're not sure yet. Highway and transportation, canceled. The committee of the whole, canceled. We will, however, have our regular county board meeting on July 19th at 6:30 in this room. Okay, consent agenda. Any items that you wish to take off the consent agenda? Is there a motion to approve? Mr. Esri, second by Mr. King. Roll call, please.
Goss,
Yes.
King. Marsh. McGuire. Mitchell. Patterson.
Yes.
Petrie,
Yes.
Rector. Rosales,
Yes.
Store. Summers. Tinsley,
Yes.
Anderson. Clifford. Cowart. Cruz. Douglas.
Yes.
Esri,
Yes.
Furtado. Weibel.
Yes, motion carries. Okay, communications from board members. Ms. Petrie.
Well, I just want to make certain that the ball will not be dropped for the comments concerning that land situation. I checked with Mr. Hall. He said it doesn't fall within his domain, so I don't have a suggestion as to whose domain, but if somebody could assure them that there will be some follow-up, I think they would appreciate it. Thank you.
Mr. McGuire.
There it goes. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want you to notice Mr. Clemens is not here tonight. He decided to spend his 15-year anniversary with his spouse. His lovely spouse.
Thank you, Mr. McGuire. Mr. Rosales.
Well, I wanted to go ahead and take this moment to give a public apology to James Tinsley because he was not appointed. He was elected, worked hard on his own campaign. He got an overwhelming vote. I believe it was in the 60th percentile, if I could recall and remember. I just felt like Al Pacino when he says, "You're out of order, you're out of order," and he goes bizarre. I got carried away in the moment. So my apologies to you publicly. So thank you.
I publicly accept.
Mr. Anderson, you want to apologize too? But microphone, please.
Reference Ms. Petrie's comments with regard to the property. I'd like to hear some feedback as well. At least board members provided feedback. It just seems to me this is a travesty caused by us. It seems like that. And I'd like a better explanation once there's been some discussion on what the options are. And maybe if there can be a resolution to it that could actually come back to the board to make it right. But I'd like to get some feedback on it.
We can do that. I think the problem is it's mostly under jurisdiction of the treasurer's office, I believe. And of course, that's each elected official, but we could ask him to come in to see what he has done about that.
Yes, certainly he can come in and report to the board. And obviously what his restrictions are, how this happened.
We can find that out.
Remedies
Yeah,
are.
yeah.
And how the board might be able to facilitate the treasurer in accomplishing what's best in the community interest in this regard.
Okay. Mr. Storr.
Weighing in on what Jack said, I'd also like to see if we can kind of get the assessor and the state's attorney to help if that's appropriate.
We can always ask. Okay. Mr. King?
I just wanted to make sure to, remind folks that this Saturday is the 19th annual Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Jetty Roads Day celebration that takes place in, I believe, the park, King Park, and it happens from 12 to 4 p.m., and it's free this weekend. So again, 12 to 4 p.m., 19th annual Jetty Roads Day. Thank you.
Any other announcements? Mr. Marsh? No. Okay, let's move on to seek approval of the minutes of April 24th, 2018 special meeting and the May 24th, 2018 regular meeting. Moved by Max, second by Mr. Goss. Discussion. Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Next, you have the nursing home quarterly report submitted by Mr. Anderson. Mr. Anderson, do you have anything to say about that? It's for your reading. We will place that on file. Okay, and next up is finance. Ms. Furtado.
Can we go back to the nursing home report?
Okay, Mr. Storr, sorry, were we too fast?
I just did. Thank you. Jack, do you have anything to further to kind of comment about what progress is being made with the transfer of the operation of the nursing home? Is that proceeding as planned, and any glitches or circumstances you'd like to report?
In accordance with the agenda this evening, I can comment on the report that I filed, which is actually 3 months in arrear, kind of. So with regard to the report, it does not talk about the sale because it has not been approved for sale at that point. But I might refer your question to our administrator, who's been working very diligently with the nursing home and had reported to us just this last meeting that we had on an update on the county's progress in that regard.
And I don't have anything new to add. We continue to work on all of the due diligence information sharing with the purchaser.
Okay, let's go to finance. Ms. Furtado.
Number one, adoption of resolution number 2018144, authorizing payment of claims.
Second by Mr. Goss. Discussion. Seeing none, all in favor? All opposed? Motion carries.
Adoption of resolution number 2018176, authorizing purchases not following purchasing policy.
Second by Mr. King. Sorry, Ms. Petrie, he's a little faster. Discussion. Ms. Petrie.
Yes, Ms. Michaels knows. I gave her a heads up that I have a couple of questions to get on the record. The first one is, I'll just lay them out and then she'll take over. I requested this last month, and I think it would help put a aggregated perspective on where we stand on these past bills, if there could be a total at the bottom of that long list. And she volunteered to comment on some of the bills that are back in early part, right? The contracts you're going to comment on. Okay, thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Mrs. Petrie asked me earlier if I could speak to the bills on the purchases not following policy. The first one would be the contract nursing medical staffing network. You will see 4 that were from fiscal year 2015 that were made paid in fiscal year 2018. And then you'll see 2 that were from fiscal year 2016 paid in 2018. That is the $101,000 that was paid from General Corp on a settlement to medical staffing. Those bills actually did go back as far as 2015. That settlement was much less than what we owed them, but it did come out of the general fund. Therefore, it's on the report. The next part of this, once again, we have payments back from 2017 that are being paid in 2018 for the nursing home. That is an additional $65,688.47. Therefore, this past payment period, we have paid $166,688.47 of past due bills that the nursing home had owed, and we continue to do such.
A follow-up question, which you know I'm going to ask, and that is, can you talk a bit about where this money is coming from to take care of these bills? Is it some that we've gotten, some of the payments from the state that are helping move these along?
Most all of the bills that we pay, we receive money from the payer mix. That comes from Medicare, Medicaid, private pay. There is a little bit of state money, but it's not consistent, but that has helped to make the payroll in addition to these back due bills.
Other questions for Ms. Michaels? Mr. Goss?
Yeah, just a couple of quick ones. Does this list get us through on Cisco through the end of the year? And looks like Medline as well. Do we get them paid at least through 2017?
We've actually been within the last 60 days on Cisco now. That was something, that's our food vendor for all of you. And that was something that was an agreement made that we needed to keep them within the 60-day mark. So it does have them within that. And what was the other one, Jim? I'm sorry, Mr. Goss?
Medline.
Yes. That one would be a little bit further behind, but still not in the 120-day mark.
Other questions? Ms. Cord?
Yes, with the money from the sale of the nursing home, will we be able to break even, pay off all our vendors and break even?
At this point, what I can say is that we will have enough money to pay our vendors, and we're working on the bond, which Ms. Ogden, that's her bailiwick, if you will. She's very good at that. We still are looking at the items that are owed the county, and until we get a settlement on what we will still be receiving on past payments from Medicare, Medicaid, and those type of things, as we receive those in, we will continue to make payments to the county, as they will be last. Like anything else, this is your own home and you're last. We pay the vendors and the bond first, and after that, then we start paying the county back. We certainly have the tax anticipation warrants out that will help to pay off the payroll items, IMRF, Social Security, and those type of things. So we'll have that.
Okay, so we're expecting money from the state to come in that the county can use toward paying off bills?
They get intergovernmental transfer money, IGT money, generally on a quarterly basis. And at this point, we are still receiving those funds. So I'm not sure when that all stops or starts with the new buyer, because we're not sure when that closing will be, as Ms. Busey stated at the last meeting.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Do you know what our total at this point is to the, our outside the state vendors?
Approximately, I have approximately 2.4 million to outside vendors, and we're almost pushing the $3 million mark with the county. We continue to pay the Blue Cross Blue Shield and some other things. So, that's it.
Ms. Furtado has a question.
Yes, ma'am.
And maybe it's a question for both of you. The last memo before we took the vote on the sale was that we anticipated the shortfall to be about $1.9 million, depending on revenue received. And I think Ms. Coart's question is really important. And to echo Mr. Goss's favorite question, with the money coming in, is 1.9 million still about the gap right now? Has that narrowed at, or I guess grown at all?
I think it's still in that approximate area, right around $2 million. We still don't know all of our own costs in executing the closing for this sale. So there's some of that will have to get added to that as well.
Ms. Petrie.
Just to double check, I asked this question a couple of meetings ago. Is it still costing the county above everything else about $200,000 a month as long as the home stays within the county's domain?
If you remember, I did provide a cash flow report at the committee of the whole meeting, and this last month, that was not the case. It was actually only about, it was a $24,000 improvement. If you take out the fact that the general fund paid $101,000 of an outstanding bill, it was more in the area of $76,000 instead of a $200,000 loss.
Mr. King.
And my question may be to both as well. So I know that there were some stopgaps in place in regards to the payroll.
Yes, sir.
I feel like I haven't heard as many sort of, hey, we have issue. Could you,
Based on the board's direction, we have always made sure that there was payroll money first. The payroll that will be going out this Friday is $241,000, almost $242,000. So that is a large amount. It was running in the mid 230s. But we have been able to keep up with that and try to still pay some vendors. There have been more Medicaid applications approved. Certainly, I'm not here to speak for the home. However, we do see that influx of money helping with some of the cash.
Ms. Petrie.
Okay, again, I'm going to ask, I didn't give you the heads up on this one.
Okay.
The increase of cost to payroll. I asked this question when it went from 220 to 240, and now it's going up a bit more. Can you elucidate?
At this point, Ms. Petrie, I don't have the breakdown for that. However, I believe there's about 143 residents in there, so the residents have gone up a little bit due to the Medicaid applications that were received in the last couple months. So I don't know if that has to do with it or not. I don't know what the breakdown is, but I can get it for you. You guys are good tonight.
Ms.
Sorry.
Court. Microphone.
Exactly how much money are we going to recoup from the sale of this nursing home out of the $11 million?
I'm not sure. Ms. Busey has that figure. We actually still have a lot of parameters that have not been defined yet, and therefore we don't have a specific number. I believe the number that Ms. Busey stated earlier is probably more in the realm of what will be reality when it's all said and done.
What number is that?
Oh, I'm sorry.
You're asking what the actual amount that the county will receive from the purchaser for the nursing home? And that is not, it's still at 11 million, but it's subject to going through the due diligence period. So we don't have an update on that number for you at this point.
Okay, meanwhile, let's go back to the resolution.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? All opposed? Motion carries.
This next one will take a Roll call. Adoption of resolution number 218177, authorizing budget amendment 18-0031, Fund 075, Regional Planning Commission, Department 834, PERM support, housing, physical disabilities, increase appropriations $26,000, increase revenue $26,000.
Second by Mr. Patterson. Discussion. We have Lisa here from RPC. If someone has questions for her. Or the next one. Any questions on this one? Okay, roll call, please.
Goss,
Yes.
King. Marsh,
Yes.
McGuire. Mitchell. Patterson,
Yes.
Petrie,
Yes.
Rector. Rosales.
Yes.
Store. Summers. Tinsley.
Yes.
Anderson. Clifford. Coert. Cruz. Douglas. Esri.
Yes.
Furtado. Weibel.
Yes, motion carries.
Again, with the roll call, adoption of resolution number 2018-178, authorizing budget amendment 18-0032, Fund 075, Regional Planning Commission, Department 843, Emergency Shelter Families 2, increase appropriation $65,000, increase revenue $65,000.
Second by Mr. Patterson. Discussion. Sorry, Lisa, apparently we're pretty quiet tonight. Okay, Mr. King, thought of one quick.
Okay, so I guess the big question for me is the increased amount because there's an uptick in homeless, or is it just to continue to operate as things have been going, if you will?
It is a continuation of the operations. We did receive a small increase in funding from the United Way that starts on July 1st.
Got it.
Mr. Storr.
Sure. About how many families seek the emergency shelter?
How many seek?
How many families seek the emergency shelter? And over what is this, mostly during the winter or year-round?
This is a year-round shelter, and usually on an annual basis, we serve essentially 150 to 200 individual persons.
Ms. Furtado?
Can you speak to, it describes it as in, this is to accommodate the alternating grant periods. So is this a every other year grant? Or what does that mean exactly?
With our grant cycles, in order to clearly be able to report and close out from year to year and have data and also the financials, we do what they call, I believe they call them flip accounts. So, does that answer?
You keep going just for one more sentence.
That's the best. I'm essentially, so as we close out on a June 30th and then start a new year on July 1st, it's order to make sure that everything is succinctly reported.
Thank you.
Sure.
Further discussion? Seeing none, roll call.
Goss,
Yes.
King. Marsh,
Yes.
McGuire. Mitchell. Patterson,
Yes.
Petrie,
Yes.
Rector. Rosales.
Yes.
Store. Summers. Tinsley.
Yes.
Anderson. Clifford. Coert. Cruz. Douglas. Esri.
Yes.
Furtado. Weibel.
Yes, motion carries.
Adoption of resolution number 2018-179, authorizing an addendum to a professional service agreement for the delinquent tax liquidation program.
Second by Mr. Esri. Discussion? All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion carries.
Adoption of resolution number 2018-180, approving fiscal year 2019 salary administration and benefits contribution plan for non-bargaining employees.
Second by Mr. Anderson. Discussion? See none, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Ms. Furtado. Let's go to facilities. I believe it's Ms. Cruz. You're the vice chair, I think.
I move adoption of resolution number 2018-181, approving a lease agreement between the Champaign-Urbana Public Health District and the County of Champaign for the Children's Advocacy Center's premises.
Second by Mr. King. Discussion. Seeing none, all in favor? All opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Ms. Cruz. Justice Social Services, Mr. King.
Oh, thank you, sir. I move the adoption of resolution number 2018-182, authorizing extended contract between County Board and Rosecrans for reentry programming.
Second by Mr. Tinsley. Discussion. Mr. Gleason, would you be willing to come forward and perhaps explain the changes that you're proposing? Then we'll have questions.
Thank you. We're not fundamentally changing the reentry program. I'm just adding some extra resources to it to add some more help with case management and also therapy out in the community for no additional dollars. Or we're going to figure out how to do that and continue the reentry council, which is important as we apply for the grant as well, which calls for the reentry council. So we're also going to formalize it a little bit more, get some bylaws in there, and elect a chair to the reentry council and also an executive committee so that we know that it's sustainable long-term and won't rely on grant dollars to continue.
Questions? Ms. Petrie?
Yes, I would like to move to amend the resolution. And a copy has been passed around to all of you. If you'll go to the paragraph that starts now, therefore, the amendment that I'm asking for is put the amount of what the grant is, the total amount of $100,000 into the resolution.
Pardon? Oh. Is there a second to that amendment? Second by Mr. Marsh.
May I speak to it?
Yeah, go ahead.
The reason for doing this is we don't tend to do this with our resolutions. We just have a resolution, which makes it difficult for the public because then they have to go back and search for the contracts and things like that to find out what the amounts are. So I just think this makes it user-friendly for the public when they look at our resolutions. Thank you.
Further discussion on that amendment? Mr. King?
Could that ever change? So the 100 could, it
Sure,
goes.
it could change.
This is just for this year,
Yeah.
so it's 100,000 for this year.
Okay, all right, all in favor of the amendment? All opposed? Motion carries. Okay, that's amended. Any more questions for Mr. Gleason as he tries to leave? Ms. Petrie?
Oh, mine is not so much a question as a sort of an overall concern on the reentry program. It's not that I don't support reentry at all, but what has concerned me over all the years of reports that have come to us, that the large N is usually a significant number, but then the small n that gets through the program and drops off and drops off and drops off comes down to being a very small number. And I'm hoping that with some of the things that you have presented to us, that will help turn that around, because it concerns me that too many people get lost along the pathway for whatever reason. Bruce sometimes explains it, sometimes hasn't in the past, but it seems to be a shame to not figure out why that's happening, to garner more people to stay in and follow through with the case management.
Right. Well, and that's some of my intention, so thank you, is to bring services out into the community rather than to a building. So that's some of my intention. Maybe that'll help with the engagement. You're welcome.
Other questions? Okay, all in favor? Oh, sorry? Oh,
I'll just make it quick. I just want to thank you and Rosecrans for your continued involvement in this program. I mean, the reality is when it comes to social services, you're the biggest kid in town. So I think that having you guys at the table is really vital to making this work. Thanks.
Thank you.
okay, further, Mr. Goss?
Did we not already vote on it?
No, so you sort of caught me in between, so. We voted on the amendment. No, it was amendment, now back to the main motion. So let's vote on the main motion. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Mr. King. Let's go back to finance.
One last roll call. I move the adoption of resolution number 2018-183, authorizing the budget amendment 18-00033, Fund 104, Early Childhood, 845, Mental Health Counseling to odd, increased appropriations $90,120, increased revenue $90,120. Since this is the first time we're hearing about this one, I will say the reason for this grant will support mental health services for early childhood program sites and options, center-based, home-based, and family child care homes to accommodate new grant awarded by the Champaign County Mental Health Board.
Second by, okay, Mr. Patterson. Discussion. We have Lisa here for this also. Any discussion on this? Mr. King?
So I noticed that center-based, home-based, family child care homes, is there, I guess, a process for getting access to the new grant money?
So I'm representing, I'm actually not the Head Start director, however, I'm here representing her. So essentially, this will support 4 new positions to work with the children in our centers and the Head Start program. We're seeing increased behavioral issues, and so the social emotional specialists, they're hiring social emotional specialists to work with the children one-to-one and work on social skills and some of the issues that they're seeing within the Head Start population.
Will they be going in-home as well, or
I believe that these are center-based.
center-based? Okay.
We actually have, the Head Start division actually has a different division that actually does home-based services.
Okay.
Mr. Patterson?
I guess my question is just kind of, I see reference to sites, like multiple sites. Is that just your 2 Head Start locations? I guess there's a little confusion from my end on where exactly this would be occurring.
So there are, and again, I'm not as versed on the numbers, there's multiple sites. I think there's at least 4, if not 5. Is it 4? Champaign, Urbana, Rantoul, and Savoy. So 4. Thank you. And I think it's on the Head Start Council. So I believe that they will at least be in 3 of the sites, if not going to all the sites.
Further questions? Mr. King?
And this is really just for clarification, because in the, I guess, the reason it says options, center-based, home-based, family child care homes. And so I'm just trying to figure out if there were family-based or home-based, I guess, sites in the community, could they apply for grant funding through you all? Or is that just written into the reasoning?
So this is actually a grant that Regional Planning Commission was awarded from the Mental Health Board to provide these services. So if you could clarify your question with regard when you say apply for funding from us.
Well, you've sort of alluded to that it's center-based. The grants will work inside of the 5 different centers that you spoke of, and those aren't home-based per se, are they?
Correct. The specialists will be working in the centers.
Got it. But I think in the reasoning here, it just says that options, center-based, home-based, and family child care homes. So I was trying to figure out if folks are doing that work, would they have access to this? So, no.
Will they have access to
funding?
I believe the Mental Health Board is awarding grants.
Right.
We've received one for center-based programs.
Got it.
But they are probably also awarding grants for the other, yeah, exactly.
Okay, gotcha. Thank you.
Ms. Furtado?
Sorry, so instead of saying would people doing home-based care receive funding? Could they receive home-based services? Might be a different way of asking the question. Is this just the name of the grant or the name of what we're getting? I guess would be the clarification.
So I will say, our Head Start division does have home-based services that they provide. It is my understanding that this particular expansion isn't specific to the home-based services. There are home-based services that are delivered in the homes by that particular part of the program, and they already encompass some of this work.
Further questions? Roll call.
Goss,
Yes.
King, Marsh,
Yes.
McGuire, Mitchell, Patterson,
Yes.
Petrie,
Yes.
Rector, Rosales,
Yes.
Storr, Summers, Tinsley,
Yes.
Anderson, Clifford, Coert, Cruz, Douglas, Esri,
Yes.
Furtado, Weibel.
Yes, motion carries. Thank you, Ms. Furtado. Next up is Highway and Transportation. Ms. Coert, please. And we know we have Mr. Cooper here who wants to speak to us about anything here.
Yeah, Highway and Transportation has two items, and I'm going to ask Mr. Cooper to come up to the mic so that he can explain them. The Highway and Transportation Committee did not have a meeting for the month of June. We're asking for approval of resolution appropriating $111,500 from the county motor fuel tax fund for the engineering fee for a 5-year pavement management study, section number 05-0041-02-ES, and I so move.
Second by Mr. Mitchell. I would ask Mr. Cooper, because we have some new we have a new member plus relative new members, just explain the pavement management study, if you could do that.
Turn it on.
Okay. It's basically a way for us to determine when we need to do some repairs to our roads. We have a system that has graded them from, I guess it's like A to D or A to E, and the pavement management system sets it up so that we know when it gets to a, say, C or getting ready for a D, then we could go out and replace it. With this management program, it lets us know when that's occurring. So we wouldn't put money into an A or B road, but we might put a little bit into a C, definitely into a D, and we try to keep it going, and so our roads are always at least a C or above rating. That's what we do with this. And they also do a sign management program for us that the state said that we had to have, and different things like that.
Any questions? Mr. Tinsley.
I just want to take the time while I have Mr. Cooper here. Do you mind publicly going on record of saying how good of a back catcher and first baseman I was for you?
I want to point out that Mr. Cooper for many years has been one of 3 people who basically sponsored a little league up in the Douglas Park area, and has done a very fine job. So that'd be
about like on record though.
You want it
What's
on
your
record.
what's your opinion?
Do I get your partner in crime too?
Who we got?
He's gone now.
Oh, he's gone. Okay, no, just me. Just speak on me.
He was an excellent catcher.
That's it. Thank you.
okay. Further discussion on the item on the agenda. Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Ms. Court.
Okay, the next resolution, John Cooper alluded on it, is a resolution appropriating $10,000 from the county motor fuel tax fund for engineering fee for a pavement management study, section number 05-0041-01-ES.
Second by Mr. Rector, I believe. Discussion. Seeing none, all in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion carries. Is there any other business? Then we are adjourned. Have a good night.